Hi, good evening viewers. You're watching the news on Sansad television. I'm Rashika Gangwani. We will get you details of the day's top stories from India and across the world. Let's begin with today's headlines. Government working in a mission mode in the fields of health and education, asserts Prime Minister Modi. Dedicates Homi Bhabha Cancer Research Center in Mohali and Amrita Hospital in Faridabad to the nation. Nitish Kumar's Mahagatbandhan government wins trust vote in Bihar. BJP boycotts voting. Deputy Speaker conducts floor test after Speaker's resignation. RJD leaders in Bihar land for job scam case. CBI conducts searches at 25 places including Delhi, Gurugram, Patna, Katihar and Madhubani. Rajnath Singh attends SCO Defence Ministers meeting in Tashkent, calls for an end to terrorism in all its forms, expresses concern over situation in Ukraine. US announces additional military aid of $3 billion to Ukraine. Russia warns that Daria Dugina's murderers will not be spared. Now, a quick look into some important news of the day. Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan holds discussion with 8 Australian universities on building successful Australia-India research collaborations. ED conducts searches at 17 premises of Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren's aide Prem Prakash. 2 AK-47 were seized from his Ranchi office. Centre issues advisory to states on hand, foot and mouth disease or tomato flu. 82 children under 5 years infected in Kerala's Kollam district. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar calls concerted efforts to make Latin America a business hub for India. Tripartite agreement signed for development of multi-modal logistic parks under Bharatmala Yojana. NIA conducts searches across Delhi and NCR in connection with 3,000 kg of heroin seizure from MUNDRA port last September. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida signals policy shifts, says Japan should consider building new nuclear power plants. Pakistan to seek global help for relief after floods claim hundreds of lives. US defense airstrikes in Syria calls them necessary to defend US personnel after drone attacks on its forces. IMF delegation meets Sri Lankan president to finalize bailout package, including restructuring $29 billion debt. Now news in detail. Amidst the BJP walkout, the government led by Chief Minister Nitish Kumar on Monday won the trust vote in the Bihar Assembly. The trust vote was passed in the House first by voice vote and then by voting. 160 votes were received in favor of the trust vote. No votes were cast against due to the BJP walkout. Speaking on the motion of confidence, Chief Minister Nitish Kumar targeted the BJP.
तो इसीलिए तब हम लोग काम करेंगे, हम मिल करके सब लोगों को हम कह रहे हैं पूरे देश में कि जरा मिल करके एकजुट होकर के काम करिए, तो फिर सही मौके पर आइएगा। एक बार अगर किन्हीं को मौका मिला, काम नहीं मिला, अब तरह तरह का नाम दे रहे हैं।
Ahead of the trust vote, Bihar Assembly Speaker Vijay Kumar Sinha announced his resignation in the House. He also expressed displeasure over the no-confidence motion moved against him by the Mahagatbandhan government. As soon as the special session of the Assembly began, Sinha adjourned the proceedings of the House till 2 p.m. after giving his reply on the no-confidence motion.
परंपरा है, नियम है, रहेगा। सदन की कार्यवाही स्थगित करने के पूर्व अपने पद से बहुमत का सम्मान करते हुए इस्तीफा देता हूं।
Senior JDU leader Devesh Chandra Thakur filed nomination papers for the election to the post of Bihar Legislative Council chairman. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar and former Chief Minister Rabri Devi were present along with Tejaswini Yadav and other leaders of the Mahagatbandhan. The CBI on Wednesday searched the premises of several RJD leaders in Bihar in connection with an alleged job for plot scam that took place during former Union Railway Minister Lalu Prasad Yadav's tenure. Searches were conducted at 25 places including Delhi, Gurugram, Patna, Katihar and Madhubani. The premises of several RJD leaders including MLC Sunil Singh, Rajya Sabha MPs Ashfaq Karim and Fayaz Ahmed and former MLC Subodh Rai were searched. The CBI has named Lalu Yadav, his wife Rabri Devi and daughters Misa Bharti and Hema Yadav in the case. 12 people who got jobs in the railway zones of Mumbai, Jabalpur, Kolkata, Jaipur and Hajipur in 2008-9 are also mentioned as accused. The CBI filed an FIR on September 23, 2021 in connection with the case that related to getting jobs in the railways in lieu of the land. The centre is working on 6 fronts simultaneously to strengthen the health sector. Stating this on Wednesday, Prime Minister Modi added that the government is making record investments to provide health facilities to poorest of the poor. The Prime Minister dedicated the Homi Bhabha Cancer Hospital and Research Centre to the nation in Mulanpur, Mohali. He said in the last 8 years, holistic healthcare has been made one of the top priorities of the country. He added that the emphasis has been on setting up medical colleges and research institutes and increasing the number of doctors and paramedical personnel.
देश की स्वास्थ्य सुविधाओं को सुधारा जा रहा है, मजबूत किया जा रहा है। पहला मोर्चा है प्रिवेंटिव हेल्थ केयर को बढ़ावा देने का। दूसरा मोर्चा है गांव-गांव में छोटे और आधुनिक अस्पताल खोलने का।
At the SCO Defence Ministers meeting in Tashkent, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Wednesday articulated India's stand on various issues including terrorism, Ukraine and Afghanistan. Rajnath Singh called upon the member countries to join a united fight against all forms of terrorism. He expressed India's concern over the situation in Ukraine. The Defence Minister called for a solution to the Ukraine situation through dialogue. Rajnath Singh said India supports a peaceful, secure and stable Afghanistan. The President has given his assent to 2 laws of Karnataka and Jharkhand that will amend the Criminal Procedure Code. Under the Code of Criminal Procedure Karnataka Amendment Bill 2021, recording of evidence through audio and video will be allowed in the presence of the accused and their lawyers. The Criminal Procedure Code Jharkhand Amendment Bill 2020 allows courts to prosecute absconding accused and punish them in their absence. Now let's take a look at news from across the nation. Prime Minister Modi will address the National Conference of State Ministers for Labour through video conference on Thursday. The conference will have 4 theme-based sessions. Union Minister Piyush Goyal has asked the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade to introduce scholarships to needy and talented students to help them pursue studies at the institute. A meeting of the Congress Working Committee has been scheduled to be convened next Sunday. The agenda includes the election of the party president. The Enforcement Directorate conducted raids at several places in the state for the ongoing money laundering probe into illegal mining in Jharkhand. 2 AK-47 rifles and 60 cartridges were recovered from a house in Ranchi during the searches. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal flagged off 97 new electric buses. He said Delhi will be made a model for the whole world in field of transport. The Punjab and Haryana High Court has ordered a fresh assessment of the threat to life of those people whose security cover has been removed or changed. The court gave the order during the hearing of petitions against the removal of security cover given to some people in Punjab. The Aam Aadmi Party government of Delhi has called a one-day session of the Legislative Assembly on Friday, 26 August. This information has been given in the letter issued by the Assembly Secretariat. The army shot dead 2 terrorists along the line of control in Rajouri district of Jammu and Kashmir. The 2 were part of a group of suspected terrorists who tried to enter Pukhrani village in Lam area of Nowshera across the border on the intervening night of Monday and Tuesday. Now let's trace the monsoon situation in the nation. The army's help is being sought to rescue people trapped in floods in the Bundi district of Rajasthan. Some people are still stranded in Kota district while things are returning to normal in Jhalawar district. The meteorological department has said the state will receive some respite from the heavy rains in the state. Around 2,000 people were evacuated from the affected areas. 4.71 lakh cusecs of water is being released from Kota barrage. About 50,000 cusecs of water was released in the morning from the 4 gates of Kalsan Dam, and now the water in low-lying areas has been reduced. A cloud burst in the Tehri district of Uttarakhand flooded the Nelchami river in Chirbatia village. Some bridges were damaged on the Mulgarh 30 road. There were no casualties. At least 7 people lost their lives in Tehri district after a similar cloud burst on 19th of August. Speaker Om Birla met the Speaker of Australian Senate, Sulia Isis, on the sidelines of the 65th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference in Halifax, Canada. The Australian parliamentary delegation was also present on the occasion. Om Birla said that in order to strengthen parliamentary democracy, the legislators of India and Australia should interact regularly and exchange best practices of both the countries. Time for a short break. On the other side, 6 months after Russia's invasion, Ukraine, the war slows to a grin with no end in sight.
Nature and You, the Environment Series. Aim is to awake and aware people to protect our environment, be it climate or wildlife crisis, depletion of ocean resources, waste management issues. Only on Sansad TV.
Welcome back to the news. Now news from Russia-Ukraine war front. Six months after Russia invaded Ukraine, the war has slowed to a grin as both sides trade combat strikes and small advances in the east and south. Both sides have seen thousands of troops killed and injured as Russia's bombardment of cities has killed countless innocent civilians.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine is now into its 6th month. On the eve of its independence, Ukraine has alerted its population to the prospect of intensified attacks by Russia on civilian infrastructure and government facilities. In central Kyiv, battered and broken Russian tanks collected from the battlefields are now on display. It is a very different parade of military equipment than Russian President Vladimir Putin planned. It is a far cry from the objectives and beliefs that the Kremlin spelled out at the start of its special military operation. Kremlin had urged Ukraine's military to turn against Zelensky's government, reflecting the hope that the population would welcome its forces. But fierce Ukrainian resistance soon dispelled that expectation. Months later, the Russian offensive is bogged down. Ukrainian forces are increasingly targeting key facilities far behind the front lines, including in Russia-occupied Crimea. The Kremlin shifted its focus to the Donbas, Ukraine's eastern industrial heartland, where Moscow-backed separatists had been fighting government troops since 2014. But recently, even the Donbas offensive slowed as Moscow was forced to relocate troops to Russia-occupied areas in the south to fend off a potential Ukrainian counter-offensive. But casualties continue to mount on both sides. Ukraine said for the first time this week that nearly 9,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed so far in action. Just 1 month into the war, Russia had said its casualties numbered 1,351 soldiers, while 3,825 were wounded. Western estimates of Russian dead have ranged from more than 15,000 to over 20,000. 6 months on, the largest military conflict in Europe since the Second World War has turned into a grinding war of attrition. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
The US has announced $3 billion in fresh military aid to mark Ukraine's Independence Day and 6 months to its conflict with Russia. US officials said the latest round of military aid will help Ukraine buy arms, ammunition, and other essentials for its defense forces. Meanwhile, Russia has warned that it will show no mercy to Ukraine over the murder of Daria Dugina, the daughter of a close aide of President Vladimir Putin. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack that is suspected to have targeted her father, Alexander Dugin. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said the investigation into the attack will be completed soon and those who ordered the car bombing will not be spared. Now look at some other global updates. Thailand's constitutional court has suspended Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha from official duties. It is hearing a petition seeking a review of his legally mandated 8-year term limit. Although Prayut could be restored to his position when the court makes its ruling, his surprise suspension has thrown Thai politics into confusion. Here are more details.
Thailand's constitutional court ruled on Wednesday that Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha must suspend his active duties while the court decides whether he has overstayed his legal term in office. It was not immediately announced who would assume his duties as acting Prime Minister. Under law, it would be Deputy Prime Minister Pravit Wongsuwan, who's ranked first among several deputies. He's a close political ally of the Prime Minister and part of the same military group that staged the 2014 coup that initially brought him to power. The court's decision was announced in a statement after the news was leaked to Thai media. The court agreed unanimously there was reason to consider the petition, arguing he has exceeded his term limit. By a vote of 5-4, the court members agreed to suspend Prayut from his duties effective Wednesday until it reached a decision. The court did not say when it would issue its decision on whether Prayut has breached the clause in the constitution on the 8-year limit. If it rules that he did, he would lose his post right away. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Supporters of Malaysian ex-Prime Minister Najib Razak gathered outside the National Palace to seek royal intervention just a day after he began a 12-year jail term. 69-year-old Najib went behind bars on Tuesday after losing a final appeal in a graft case linked to the massive looting of the 1 MDB state fund 4 years after his shocking election ouster over the scandal. Take a look.
Hours before Malaysia's top court upheld a guilty verdict against him in the 1 MDB case, Malaysia's former Prime Minister Najib Razak on Tuesday claimed he was not given a fair trial in his final appeal. Speaking to supporters and the media, Najib Razak said everything he proposed to the court was rejected. Malaysia's federal court on Tuesday upheld Najib's guilty conviction and a 12-year jail sentence on corruption charges. The top court also denied Najib's request for a stay of sentence. The 69-year-old former premier was found guilty in July 2020 of criminal breach of trust, abuse of power and money laundering for illegally receiving about $10 million from SRC International, a former unit of State Fund 1 Malaysia Development Berhad. Najib, who pleaded not guilty, was sentenced to 12 years in jail and a fine of $46 million. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now news from some other parts of the world. The Chinese mission to the United Nations has condemned envoys of some countries for interfering with China's internal affairs on Taiwan. Earlier, the UN representatives, some countries issued a joint statement on the current situation in the Taiwan Strait. The Chinese mission denounced a joint statement saying its accusations against China are groundless, unreasonable and irresponsible. The embalmed heart of the Portuguese monarch, Dom Pedro I, was received in Brasilia with full military honors of a head of state. Pedro famously declared the independence of Brazil from Portugal 200 years ago in 1822 and was crowned Emperor of Brazil. The heart kept inside a gold urn arrived at the presidential palace in an Opel Rolls-Royce and was received by President Jair Bolsonaro with a gun salute and military honors. Japan hit a record number of 343 daily COVID-19 deaths on Tuesday. The ongoing seventh wave death toll exceeded the previous high of 322 on February 22nd. The daily tally of new COVID-19 cases reached to 208,551. Japan is dealing with the strain on its medical system fueled by a resurgence of infections, forcing people with other diseases to postpone their surgeries. South Korea continued with its anti-terror drills for the third day. It staged a simulated chemical and drone attack on headquarters of Seoul's subway. About 230 personnel from 12 organizations including Special Operations Command, Chemical, Biological and Radiological Protection Command, Special Police Squad and Fire Station joined the drill. Hundreds of South African Union members took out a march in South Africa protesting over soaring inflation, low wages, taxes and unemployment. Protesters chanted songs and marched towards President's office holding placards. They protested despite the government's threat of public employees who are protesting would lose their pay. Heat waves this summer have drawn more attention than ever to the impact of climate change. From deaths to property damage to farming, the extreme weather conditions are causing problems in many countries, with scientists calling for more action to adapt to new weather patterns. More details follow.
It's been a long, hot summer in Europe and beyond. Temperatures have broken records. Droughts and wildfires have followed in many countries. The finger of blame is being pointed at climate change. Heat waves have become more common since the pre-industrial times. This year's extreme weather events have been a shock to the system. The summer has seen record-breaking heat in the UK, across France, northern Germany and Denmark. Combine this with record low river levels across Europe, like this completely dried out river in Burgundy in France. Heat waves can kill. But while no definitive figures are available for excess deaths during the recent hot weather, groups like the elderly and those with underlying health conditions are particularly vulnerable. Mental health has also suffered. With hot weather, sweat and dehydration, high-level cognitive functions are harder to carry out. After the heat have come floods. In the UK, after 2 heat waves, downpours across the country triggered a risk of flash floods as the ground was too dry to absorb the water. And in South Korea, some of the heaviest rain in decades swarmed the capital region this month. Finding ways to use water more efficiently, planting more green cover that reduce temperatures, and building homes that can better withstand the heat could all help. Governments need to pick up the pace of these changes, but so far they have not done so. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Cash-strapped Pakistan has decided to seek international help to undertake relief and rehabilitation efforts in parts of the country inundated by devastating floods that has claimed nearly 800 lives and left thousands homeless. The decision was made on Tuesday during an urgent briefing by the country's National Disaster Management Authority. Here are more details.
Flash floods caused by unusually heavy monsoon rains have killed at least 783 people in Pakistan in the last 2 months. Most of the deaths took place in the impoverished southwestern Balochistan and southern Sindh provinces, according to the government. Local media PTV showed several roads in Dera Ghazi Khan city of Punjab province cut off by the floodwaters, while the floodwaters have caused damage to people's home in Balochistan province. Government agencies and the army have set up aid and relief camps in flooded regions and were working to help relocate families and provide food and medicine. The flooding has damaged nearly 1 lakh houses. Pakistan Met Department has predicted more rain, wind and thunder showers, with few heavy falls in Sindh, southern Punjab, south and northeastern Balochistan in the coming days. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now time for all the sporting action. HS Pranoy stunned second seed Kento Momota to reach the men's singles pre-quarterfinals of the World Championships. Pranoy defeated two-time former world champion Momota 21-17, 21-16 in a second-round tie. Lakshya Sen sailed into the men's singles pre-quarterfinals of the BWF World Championships. Lakshya defeated Spain's Luis Penawel 21-17, 21-10. Last edition's runner-up, Kidambi Srikanth crashed out of the Badminton World Championships. Srikanth lost in the straight games 18-21, 17-21 to world number 32 Zhao Junpeng. The Supreme Court today said the matters related to the BCCI, including amending its constitution, would be heard by a bench headed by Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. South Africa's fast bowler, Kaiso Rabada, moved 2 places up to number 3 in the latest ICC rankings for test bowlers. Rabada has topped India's Jasprit Bumrah and Pakistan's Shaheen Shah Afridi in the rankings. That's all in today's The News. For more news and updates, stay tuned to Sansad Television. Good night.